Most people hear the word compounding and think it is some kind of magic machine. Put in a little money, wait long enough, and one day it turns into a fortune. And yes, that can happen. But here is the part nobody likes to say out loud. If the amount you invest every month is too small, compounding may not be your problem. Time may not be your problem. The market may not even be your problem. The real problem may be that you are trying to build a retirement house with pocket change. And I know that sounds harsh, because maybe you are doing the right thing. Maybe you finally started investing after years of bills, kids, debt, emergencies, layoffs, medical costs, and life hitting you from every direction. Maybe you are proud because you are putting away $25 or $50, maybe $100 a month, and you should be proud. That discipline matters. But pride and math are not the same thing. There is a painful gap between I am investing and I am investing enough to change my future. And for many people over 40, that gap is where the danger lives. Because the account is growing, but not fast enough to protect the life you think it will protect. So in this video, we are going to talk honestly about when compounding helps you, and when it quietly gives you the illusion that you are safer than you really are. Here is where most people get trapped. They confuse starting with arriving, and I understand why. Starting feels like a victory, especially if you spent years not investing at all. The first automatic transfer feels like a line in the sand. It feels like you are finally becoming the kind of person who takes money seriously, and that feeling is real. But after 40, the question slowly changes. It is no longer just, am I investing? It becomes, is this amount actually strong enough to carry the weight I am putting on it? Because $50 a month can build a habit. It can build identity. It can teach your brain that money can leave your checking account without being spent. That is powerful. But $50 a month cannot always build the retirement you are imagining, especially if the clock is no longer giving you 40 years to let it breathe. And this is where compounding becomes misunderstood. Compounding is not a miracle that rescues weak numbers. Compounding is more like a helper. It helps what is already there. It amplifies what you feed it. But if you feed it too little, it does not become cruel. It simply becomes honest. Think about it like planting a tree. If you plant one seed in rich soil and give it 25 or 30 years, that tree can become something strong. But if you plant the seed late, water it once in a while, and expect it to shade your whole house in a few seasons, the problem is not the seed. The problem is the expectation. Investing works the same way. A small monthly amount is not useless because it has no value. It becomes dangerous when it lets you believe you are doing more than you really are. Let's bring this into real life. Imagine a man in his late 40s making a decent income. He has a mortgage, a car payment, maybe one child still at home, maybe one child in college, maybe aging parents who need help. He finally decides to invest $100 a month. He feels better. He should feel better. That is a good decision. But if he has almost nothing saved for retirement and he wants to stop working in 15 or 20 years, that $100 is not a retirement plan. It is a beginning. And beginnings are important, but they are not the same as safety. This is the uncomfortable part. A lot of people are not underinvesting because they are lazy. They are underinvesting because their entire financial life was built around payments: the house payment, the truck payment, the credit card minimum, the phone plan, the insurance, the subscriptions, the family obligations. And after all of that, whatever tiny amount is left gets sent to an investment account, almost like a tip at the end of the meal. Then they say, at least I'm investing. And yes, at least you are. But the deeper question is, why does your future only get the leftovers? That question can sting, but it can also wake you up. Because many people do not have an investing problem. They have a priority order problem. Their lifestyle was allowed to grow first, and their future was asked to survive on whatever remained. And the older you get, the more expensive that order becomes. When you are 25, investing small amounts can still be rescued by time. When you are 45 or 55, time is still valuable, but it does not forgive as easily. The math becomes less patient. Here is a simple test. Look at the amount you invest every month and ask yourself this quietly. If I kept doing only this for the next 10 years, would I feel protected or would I feel exposed? Do not answer with optimism. Answer with your stomach. Because your stomach usually tells the truth before your spreadsheet does. If the answer is, I would still feel exposed, then the amount is not evil. It is not pointless. But it is not enough to carry the story you are telling yourself. And this does not mean you should stop investing small amounts. That is one of the worst conclusions someone can take from this. Small investing is not the enemy. Self-deception is the enemy. If $50 is all you can do right now, do it. But call it what it is. It is habit building. It is momentum. It is a first brick. It is not yet the wall. The danger is when a person lays one brick a month and lives as if the house is already built. The practical move here is not complicated, but it is honest. Separate your investing into two questions. The first question is, what can I invest right now without breaking my life? The second question is, what amount would actually move the needle for my future? Those numbers may be different. In fact, they often are. And the gap between them is not something to be ashamed of. It is something to study. That gap shows you where the work is. Maybe the work is reducing a car payment. Maybe it is killing one credit card balance. Maybe it is raising income. Maybe it is downsizing a lifestyle that quietly became too expensive. Maybe it is simply admitting that retirement cannot be funded with whatever is left after comfort has eaten first. For Americans over 40, this is not just about getting rich. It is about not being forced into desperation later. It is about not reaching 62, 67, or 70 and realizing that the account exists, but it does not have enough strength. It is about understanding that compounding is wonderful, but it is not a substitute for contribution. The market can multiply, but it cannot multiply what you never gave it. So before we talk about the exact monthly amounts that start to make compounding more meaningful, sit with this idea. Investing a small amount is a good beginning, but it should never become a comfortable hiding place. The goal is not to feel like an investor. The goal is to build something that can actually stand when your paycheck one day stops showing up. Now let's talk about the number itself, because this is where people usually want a clean answer. They want someone to say, if you invest this much every month, compounding works. If you invest less than that, it doesn't. But real life is not that clean. A 42-year-old with no debt, a paid-off car, and a stable income is not in the same position as a 57-year-old with credit card balances, a mortgage, and almost no retirement savings. The amount matters, but the context around the amount matters just as much. Still, there is a truth hiding underneath all the details. The smaller your monthly investment is, the more time you need. And the less time you have, the more your monthly investment has to do the heavy lifting. That is the trade-off. Time and contribution are like two workers carrying the same couch. When you are young, time carries most of the weight. After 40, contribution has to grab the other end and start working harder. This is why $25 a month at 22 can feel inspiring, but $25 a month at 52 can be dangerous if you believe it is solving the whole problem. The dollar amount did not change. The meaning changed. The timeline changed. The pressure changed. At 22, that $25 is a seed with decades of weather ahead of it. At 52, that $25 is still a seed, but winter is not as far away as it used to be. And this is not meant to discourage anyone. It is meant to remove the fog, because fog is expensive. Fog lets people say, I'm doing something, without asking whether that something matches the size of the life they are trying to protect. Let's make it practical. Imagine you invest $100 a month. That is $1,200 a year. Over 10 years before growth, that is $12,000. Over 20 years before growth, that is $24,000. Now, yes, compounding can add more. A good market can help. Reinvested returns can help. But if you are hoping that this alone becomes hundreds of thousands of dollars in a short window, you are asking compounding to perform a rescue mission. And compounding is not a rescue worker. It is a multiplier. A multiplier needs something meaningful to multiply. That is the sentence most people need to hear. A multiplier needs something meaningful to multiply. If your monthly contribution is too small compared to your age, your goals, and your savings gap, the market can still grow your money, but it may not grow it enough to change your options. And options are what you are really buying. You are not investing just to see a number on a screen. You are investing to buy the option to work less, the option to say no, the option to help your spouse, the option to handle a medical bill without panic, the option to not move in with your adult children because you never built enough cushion, the option to retire because you choose to, not because your body gives out before your bank account is ready. So the question is not, is $100 good? The question is, good for what? Good for building discipline? Yes. Good for learning the market? Yes. Good for creating a small emergency cushion in an investment account? Maybe. Good for replacing a missing retirement plan at 50? Probably not by itself. That phrase, by itself, matters. Because small investments can become powerful when they are part of a larger strategy. Maybe you invest $100 now while you pay off a high-interest credit card, and once that payment is gone, you redirect $400 more into investing. That is different. Maybe you are investing $150 a month now, but you are also increasing it by 1% of income every year. That is different. Maybe you are contributing to a 401k, getting an employer match, and this $100 is just extra. That is different too. But if the small amount is the entire plan and there is no path for it to grow, then you have to be honest. You are not building a bridge yet. You are collecting boards. One simple mental test is this. Look at the amount you invest every month and multiply it by 12. Then ask, would I be proud if this was all I added to my future this year? Not ashamed? Not guilty? Just honest. If you invest $75 a month, that is $900 a year. If you invest $200 a month, that is $2,400 a year. If you invest $500 a month, that is $6,000 a year. Those annual numbers tell the truth more clearly than the monthly numbers do. Monthly numbers can feel manageable. Annual numbers reveal the scale. And for someone over 40, scale matters. Because a retirement account does not care that life was expensive. It does not care that groceries went up, insurance went up, property taxes went up, rent went up, and your adult children still needed help. Those things matter emotionally. They matter deeply. But your future income gap will still ask a cold question. How much did you actually build? That is why you have to stop judging your investing amount only by whether it feels responsible. You have to judge it by whether it is becoming large enough to matter. There is a difference between a responsible gesture and a life-changing system. A responsible gesture says, I put something away this month. A life-changing system says, every year, I am moving more money from consumption to ownership. That is the shift. Not perfection. Not sacrifice until life becomes miserable. Just a steady transfer of power. Less money trapped in payments. More money buying assets. Less money disappearing into things that age badly. More money going into things that can grow while you sleep. And this is where many people over 40 still have more power than they think. The mistake is believing the only way to invest more is to suddenly earn a lot more. Sometimes, yes, income has to rise. But often, the first increase comes from cleaning up financial leaks. A car that is too expensive. A storage unit full of things nobody uses. Insurance policies never compared. Subscriptions that feel small but stack quietly. Eating out because everyone is tired. Helping family in a way that is loving but financially unbounded. None of these things alone may destroy you, but together, they can steal the monthly amount that would have made compounding meaningful. So before you ask whether compounding is useless, ask something more personal. Have I given it enough fuel to work with? Because compounding is like a furnace. It can create heat. It can warm the house. But if you only give it a handful of twigs, you cannot be shocked when the room stays cold. And that brings us to the next layer. Because once you realize the amount matters, the next question becomes even more uncomfortable. Where is the money supposed to come from when your life already feels full? The hardest part about investing more after 40 is not the math. Most people can understand the math if they sit with it long enough. The hard part is that the money is already spoken for. Before your paycheck even arrives, it has names attached to it. Mortgage, rent, car, insurance, utilities, food, credit cards, kids, parents, repairs, medicine, taxes, and then, somewhere near the bottom, after everyone else has taken their chair at the table, your future is standing in the corner waiting to see if there is anything left. That is why telling someone, just invest more, can sound almost insulting. Because in real life, money is not just numbers. Money is obligations. Money is guilt. Money is family. Money is the roof over your head. Money is the car you need to get to work. Money is helping a grown child who is struggling. Money is not wanting your spouse to feel like life is only bills and denial. So the question is not simply, can you invest more? The better question is, what has quietly been placed above your future for too long? That question is uncomfortable because it does not accuse you. It asks you to look, and sometimes looking is harder than being blamed. For many people, the biggest obstacle is not one dramatic mistake. It is the accumulation of reasonable decisions. A slightly nicer car because you work hard. A bigger house because the family needed space. A vacation because everyone was exhausted. A few subscriptions because each one was only $10 or $15. Eating out because cooking after work felt impossible. Helping relatives because saying no felt cruel. None of these decisions look reckless by themselves. That is what makes them dangerous. They all look normal. They all look understandable. They all look like life. But normal can still be expensive. And this is where you have to separate comfort from protection. Comfort asks, can I afford the payment? Protection asks, can I afford this and still build a future? Those are two very different questions. A payment can fit inside your monthly budget and still damage your long-term life. A truck payment can be manageable and still delay your retirement. A house can be affordable and still leave no room for investing. A lifestyle can look stable from the outside and still be starving the only account that is supposed to protect you later. A practical way to see this is to stop looking at purchases only by the monthly payment. Look at them by what they steal from your monthly investing capacity. A $450 car payment is not just $450. It may be the difference between investing $100 a month and investing $550 a month. Over years, that difference is not small. That difference can become freedom, or delay, or stress, or another decade of working when your body is already tired. And I am not saying everyone should drive an old car forever or live like life is punishment. That is not the point. The point is to tell the truth about trade-offs before time tells it for you. Because time always tells the truth eventually. It just tells it later when the options are fewer. If you are over 40, one of the most powerful things you can do is not to ask, what can I cut? That question feels miserable. Ask instead, what am I still paying for that no longer matches the life I am trying to build? That changes the tone. It makes the decision less about deprivation and more about alignment. Maybe the house made sense 10 years ago, but now half the rooms are empty and the taxes keep climbing. Maybe the car was exciting when you bought it, but now it is just a monthly wait. Maybe the storage unit holds things from a life you are not living anymore. Maybe you are still spending to maintain an image that nobody important is even asking you to maintain. Maybe you are still saying yes to family in ways that make you look generous today, but leave you vulnerable tomorrow. That last one is especially hard for people in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, because many are caught in the middle. Helping adult children, helping aging parents, trying not to disappoint anyone, trying not to become selfish. But there is a quiet truth here. If you sacrifice your entire financial future to rescue everyone else, one day someone may have to rescue you. And that is not love becoming stronger. That is pressure moving to the next person. So sometimes, investing more is not about finding extra money. It is about putting boundaries around the money that keeps leaking out through guilt, habit, and old decisions. Here is a small test. Look at your last 30 days of spending and do not judge it, just notice it. Ask yourself, which expenses gave me real value? Which ones gave me temporary relief? Which ones were just automatic? Which ones came from pressure? That simple exercise can reveal more than a complicated budget, because the goal is not to shame yourself. The goal is to find the money that is already moving, but moving in the wrong direction. And when you find even $100 or $200 more, do not treat it like a random bonus. Give it a job immediately. Send it to the place that buys your future back. Because money without a job usually returns to the habits it came from. This is why automation matters. Not because it is fancy, not because it makes you financially superior, but because it protects your decision from your moods. If you wait until the end of the month to invest what is left, life will usually make sure nothing is left. There will always be something: a birthday, a repair, a bill, a tired Friday night, a family request, a sale that feels like a smart deal. The end of the month is where good intentions go to die. So pay your future closer to the front of the line. Even if you cannot move it all the way to the top yet, move it higher. If you invest $100 now, maybe the first goal is not $1,000 a month. Maybe the first goal is $150, then $200. Then when a debt is paid off, half of that old payment goes to investing before your lifestyle absorbs it. That is how people quietly change their trajectory, not with one heroic move, with a series of decisions that refuse to let lifestyle eat every raise, every bonus, every freed-up payment. And this is where compounding starts to become less useless. Not because the market changed, because your contribution changed. The machine was always there. The question was whether you were feeding it enough to matter. There is a moment in adulthood when you realize your future will not be funded by what you meant to do. It will be funded by what you repeated. The automatic transfers, the boring increases, the payments you refused to replace after debt disappeared, the boundaries you finally set, the purchases you delayed not because you were scared, but because you were choosing something bigger than applause. That is what investing more really means after 40. It is not just adding dollars, it is rearranging loyalty. For years, your money may have been loyal to lenders, stores, appearances, emergencies, and everyone else's needs. At some point, your money has to become loyal to the older version of you who will not have the same energy, the same earning power, or the same margin for mistakes, because that person is coming. And the question is whether you are sending help ahead or leaving them to deal with whatever is left. Now, there is another side to this that almost nobody wants to talk about, because it makes investing feel less comfortable. Sometimes compounding looks useless, not because compounding failed, but because the person is trying to make investing do the job of a broken financial foundation. That is a different problem. Because if you are investing $200 a month while paying 22% interest on credit card debt, part of your life is trying to build while another part is quietly burning. And that creates confusion. You look at your investment account and think, why does this feel so slow? But the real issue may be that the rest of your money is trapped in a system that works against you every single month. This is where a lot of people over 40 feel stuck. They are not broke in the obvious way. They have income, they have a home, they have a car, they may have a retirement account from work. From the outside, everything looks normal. But underneath, the money is moving in circles. Pay the card, use the card, pay the loan, replace the car, get the raise, absorb the raise, invest a little, withdraw during an emergency, start again, feel behind, promise to fix it next year, and years pass that way. This is why you have to look at your financial life as a whole machine, not just one investment account. Your investments are one gear, your debt is another gear, your spending habits are another, your emergency fund is another, your income is another. If one gear is spinning forward and 3 gears are spinning backward, you may be working hard and still not moving very far. A very practical question to ask is this: am I investing from strength, or am I investing while financially bleeding? That question is not meant to stop you. It is meant to help you see the order of the battle. For example, if you have no emergency fund at all, every surprise becomes a threat to your investments. The car breaks down, and you pull from the brokerage account. The water heater dies and you use a credit card. A medical bill comes, and now the money that was supposed to grow is either gone or buried under interest. In that situation, investing is still good, but the foundation is fragile. You are planting seeds in a yard where the fence is broken and the animals keep getting in. So maybe the first move is not only, how do I invest more? Maybe the first move is, how do I stop interrupting the money that is supposed to compound? That is a powerful shift. Because compounding needs time, but it also needs protection. Money that gets invested and pulled out every few months never gets to become old money. It never gets to settle. It never gets to grow roots. It keeps being treated like a spare tire for a life that has no real emergency plan. And for Americans over 40, this matters deeply because emergencies are not rare. They are part of the landscape. Roof repairs, dental work, insurance deductibles, a parent needing help, a child moving back home. a job change, a health scare. These are not surprises in the sense that they are impossible to imagine. They are only surprises because most budgets pretend life will be smoother than it is. So one practical test is to look at your last 5 financial emergencies and ask, where did the money come from? Did it come from savings, a credit card, a retirement account, a personal loan? Did you delay the problem until it became more expensive? The answer tells you whether your foundation is protecting your investments or attacking them. This is why a small emergency fund can sometimes make your investing more powerful than simply adding another small contribution. Not because cash grows faster. It does not. But because cash keeps you from breaking the investment machine every time life gets rough. It gives your compounding room to stay untouched. There is a kind of maturity in saying, this money is not here to impress me. It is here to protect the plan. That is what an emergency fund does. It may feel boring. It may feel like money sitting still. But sometimes, still money is what keeps growing money from being disturbed. Now let's talk about debt. Because debt is where many people unknowingly destroy the benefit of compounding. If your investments are earning one kind of return, but your debt is charging you a higher return in reverse, you are living with 2 compoundings. One is working for you, one is working against you. And the painful part is that the one working against you often feels more urgent, more aggressive, and more certain. Credit card interest does not care if the market had a bad year. It does not care if you are tired. It does not care if you meant to pay it off last month. It compounds with a cold patience. So when someone says, I invest every month, but I still feel stuck, one of the first places to look is not the investment app. It is the debt that keeps eating the progress before it can be felt. A simple mental picture is this. Imagine trying to fill a bathtub while the drain is open. You can keep turning up the water, and that helps. But at some point, you have to ask why the tub is not filling. High-interest debt is that open drain. Lifestyle inflation is another drain. Lack of emergency savings is another. Family pressure without boundaries can be another. The goal is not only to pour more water in, the goal is to close the drains that make progress disappear. This is where a person over 40 has to become very honest about the difference between good-looking financial activity and real financial progress. Good-looking activity is having an investment account, checking the balance, watching finance videos, talking about the market, maybe even buying stocks. Real progress is when your net worth is actually moving forward because debt is shrinking, assets are growing, emergencies are covered, and your monthly cash flow has more breathing room than it did last year. Those are not the same thing. You can be financially busy and still financially stuck. So if compounding feels useless, do not immediately blame the market. Look at the whole picture. Are you investing enough? Are you leaving the money alone? Are you carrying debt that compounds against you faster than your assets compound for you? Are you using your retirement account as a backup plan for emergencies? Are you increasing contributions when income rises? Or does every raise disappear into a nicer version of the same stress? These questions are not glamorous, but they are the questions that change lives quietly. And here's the subtle truth. For many people, the fastest way to make compounding feel powerful is not chasing a higher return. It is creating a life where the money can stay invested long enough to do its job. That means fewer leaks, fewer interruptions, fewer withdrawals, fewer payments that steal the contribution before it can be made. It means building a boring system that protects your future from your present. And I know boring does not sound exciting, but after 40, boring can be beautiful. Boring is the automatic contribution that happens whether you are motivated or not. Boring is the paid-off credit card that no longer collects rent from your paycheck. Boring is the emergency fund that keeps a car repair from becoming a financial crisis. Boring is not checking the market every day because you are not gambling with next month's grocery money. Boring is sleeping a little better because your money finally has a structure. That is the kind of boring that gives dignity back. Because the goal is not to become obsessed with investing. The goal is to become less controlled by money. And you do not get there by pretending compounding is magic. You get there by giving compounding the conditions it needs, enough contribution, enough time, enough protection, and enough discipline to stop stealing from it every time life gets uncomfortable. So before you increase the risk, increase the strength of the foundation. Before you chase the next stock, close the obvious drains. Before you ask whether your money is growing fast enough, ask whether your financial life keeps forcing you to interrupt it. Because sometimes the question is not, why isn't compounding working? Sometimes the question is, why do I keep making my money start over? There is a quiet moment that happens when a person finally understands compounding correctly. It is not excitement. It is not panic. It is more like a sober kind of clarity. You stop asking, how can I get rich from this? And you start asking, what size of contribution gives my future a real chance? That question changes everything, because once you are over 40, the goal is not to play pretend with numbers. The goal is to build enough financial force that your older self is not left depending on luck, overtime, Social Security alone, adult children, or a body that may not want to keep working forever. This is where investing becomes less about dreams and more about responsibility. Not the heavy kind that crushes you, the honest kind that steadies you. And this is why percentages can be more useful than fixed numbers. A person making $4,000 a month and investing $100 is not in the same place as a person making $10,000 a month and investing $100. The dollar amount is the same. The sacrifice is not. The seriousness is not. The future impact is not. So instead of only asking, how many dollars am I investing? Ask, what percentage of my income is being sent to my future before life spends it for me? That question reveals the truth quickly. If someone earns $6,000 a month and invests $100, that is not even 2% of income. It may feel like investing, but it is a very small claim on the future. If that same person gets to 10%, now the future has a voice. If they get to 15%, now the future has real weight. If they are behind and can eventually reach 20% or more, now they are no longer just hoping compounding works. They are giving it something serious to work with. And no, not everyone can jump there immediately. That is not real life. But the point is not to jump. The point is to aim. Without a target, most people stay trapped at the amount that feels comfortable. And comfortable amounts are often designed by fear, habit, and whatever was left over after everything else got paid. Here is a practical way to think about it. Your first investing amount may be what you can survive. Your next investing amount should be what makes you slightly uncomfortable. And over time, your goal is to reach the amount that actually changes the ending. Those are 3 different stages: survival, stretch, transformation. Survival is when you invest $50 or $100 just to begin. That matters. Stretch is when you look at your spending and say, I can raise this even though I will feel it. Transformation is when investing becomes a fixed part of your financial identity, not a random leftover. It becomes a bill you owe to your future, except this bill gives you freedom instead of taking it away. One simple test is to increase your monthly contribution until you notice it, but not so much that your life breaks. If you do not notice it at all, it may be too small to create meaningful change. If it causes chaos, it is too aggressive. The sweet spot is often that middle place where you have to pay attention. Maybe you eat out less. Maybe you delay a purchase. Maybe you finally cancel things that have been quietly draining you. Maybe you stop upgrading your lifestyle every time your income improves. That kind of discomfort is not punishment. It is evidence that your future is finally being included in the budget. And this is where many people miss one of the biggest opportunities of their financial life: raises, bonuses, tax refunds, paid-off debts, and finished obligations. These are moments where money becomes available before your lifestyle fully claims it. But if you do not decide ahead of time, the money disappears. Not because you are bad with money, because life expands into empty space. It always does. A car loan gets paid off and suddenly the money goes to restaurants, little upgrades, new furniture, helping someone, a nicer vacation, or simply a checking account that feels less tight. And all of that can feel reasonable. But the future was waiting for that old car payment. Your investment account was waiting for that margin. The question is, who gets the freed up money first? That is one of the most powerful questions a person over 40 can ask. When a payment disappears, do I replace it with freedom or do I replace it with another payment? Because many people never become wealthier as their income rises. They simply become better at carrying larger obligations. More income, bigger car. More income, bigger house. More income, more subscriptions. More income, more help given without boundaries. More income, same stress, just wearing nicer clothes. That is why compounding feels useless to some people. Not because the math is weak, but because every time their life creates extra margin, the margin gets consumed before it can become an asset. So here is the practical move. Decide your capture rule. Before the next raise, before the next bonus, before the next debt gets paid off, decide how much of that freed up money goes straight to investing. Maybe it is half. Maybe it is 70%. Maybe if you are behind, it is the full amount for a season. The exact number depends on your life. But the rule matters because it protects you from negotiating with yourself when the money arrives. And there is another rule that can change everything. Increase your contribution every year, even if it is small. If you invest $300 a month now, move it to $330, then $365, or then $400. Small increases do not feel dramatic in the moment, but they teach your financial life to lean toward ownership. They create a direction, and direction matters more than mood. Because most people wait to feel ready, but readiness is unreliable. A system is more reliable. A system says, every year I move more money toward assets. A system says, when debt disappears, I do not let lifestyle swallow all of it. A system says, when income rises, my future gets paid before my ego upgrades the car. That may sound simple, but simple is not the same as easy. Easy is doing what you have always done. Simple is seeing the truth and repeating the right thing long enough for it to matter. And if you are behind, this is where you need courage without drama, not panic. Panic makes people chase risky investments, fall for bad promises, or give up because the gap looks too big. Courage is quieter. Courage says, I cannot change the last 20 years, but I can stop wasting the next 10. That sentence alone can change a person's financial life, because the next 10 years are still real. The next 15 years are still real. Even the next 5 years are real. A lot can change when money stops drifting and starts marching in one direction. But that will not happen if you treat investing like a small symbolic gesture. At some point, the question has to become sharper. What monthly number would make me proud 10 years from now? Not what number feels painless today. What number would make the older version of you look back and say, thank you for taking me seriously? That is the person you are really investing for, not the person watching the market today, not the person comparing accounts with strangers online. The person you are investing for is older, quieter, maybe more tired, maybe less able to recover from mistakes. That person will not care whether every contribution was easy. They will care that you made them. So no, compounding is not useless, but it can be underfed, it can be interrupted, it can be asked to do too much with too little. And when that happens, the problem is not the formula. The problem is the system around it. Your job is to build the system. More contribution when possible. Fewer leaks. Less debt working against you. More money captured before lifestyle absorbs it. More patience. More honesty. More protection. That is when compounding begins to look less like a fantasy and more like what it actually is. A quiet machine. But only if you keep feeding it. If you are still here with me near the end of this video, I want to invite you to subscribe to the channel and come back with us every day. Because conversations like this are not just about money. They are about the decisions people make quietly, in normal kitchens, in parked cars, at the end of long workdays, when nobody is clapping and nobody is watching. And if you are over 40, you already know life does not give you clean conditions. You do not always get the perfect income, the perfect timing, the perfect market, or the perfect peace of mind. You build with what you have, while life is still moving. And that is exactly why this matters. Because the next mistake is thinking the answer is always to chase a bigger return. That is where people get hurt. When someone realizes they are behind, there is a dangerous temptation to make the money move faster. They start looking for the stock that will double, the fund that promises more, the crypto comeback, the safe private deal from a friend, the real estate opportunity that sounds urgent, the option strategy. The thing that feels like it can make up for lost time. And I understand the emotion behind it. When you wake up at 48, 55, or 62 and realize the account is not where you hoped it would be, patience can feel insulting. Slow and steady can feel too slow. A normal return can feel like a joke. You start thinking, I do not have enough time for ordinary. But the painful truth is this: being behind does not make risk less dangerous. It makes risk more dangerous. A 30-year-old can often recover from a reckless mistake. A 55-year-old may not have the same runway. If you gamble with money you need for the next stage of life, the loss does not just hurt your pride. It can change your choices. It can delay retirement. It can force you to keep working. It can make you sell things at the wrong time. It can put pressure on your marriage, your children, your health, and your sense of dignity. So when compounding feels useless because your monthly investment is too small, the answer is usually not to make the investment more dramatic. The answer is to make the system more serious. That means you ask different questions. Not, what investment can save me? Ask, what amount can I consistently increase? Not, how do I catch up overnight? Ask, where is money leaking every month that could be redirected? Not, what is the fastest way to grow? Ask, what is the strongest way to keep growing without blowing up my life? That difference matters, because financial desperation loves speed. Financial maturity respects sequence. Sequence means you do first things first. If your credit card interest is eating you alive, deal with that drain. If you have no emergency cushion, build enough protection so you stop rating your future. If your 401k has an employer match and you are not getting it, look at that before chasing complicated investments. If your monthly contribution is too small, create a realistic path to raise it. If your lifestyle expands every time income rises, put a rule in place before the next raise arrives. This is not exciting advice, but exciting advice is often expensive, and after 40, the boring truth can be your best friend. Here is one practical exercise that can change the way you see your money. Take your monthly investment amount and write it down. Then write down your 3 biggest monthly payments besides housing: car payment, credit cards, personal loans, insurance, whatever they are. Now ask, if one of these payments disappeared, would I actually invest the difference, or would my life quietly absorb it? That question shows you whether your future has a system or just a hope. Because hope says, when I have more money, I will invest more. A system says, when this payment ends, this exact amount moves automatically before I touch it. Hope is emotional. A system is protective. And you need protection because you are not only fighting bad decisions. You are fighting normal life. Normal life will always give you reasons to delay. The house needs something. The family needs something. The holidays come. The car makes a noise. Prices rise. Someone asks for help. You feel tired and want comfort. None of that makes you weak. It makes you human. But because you are human, your plan cannot depend on constant willpower. It has to be built into the flow of your money. This is why automation, contribution increases, and capture rules matter so much. They sound small, but they remove the decision from the most emotional part of the month. They keep your future from having to beg for whatever is left. And maybe that is the real lesson here. Your future should not have to beg. Your older self should not have to stand behind lenders, restaurants, subscriptions, car companies, adult children, impulse purchases, and old habits, hoping there is still something left at the end. At some point, you have to move that person closer to the front of the line. Not because you are selfish, because one day, you will be that person. And when you understand that, investing becomes less abstract. It is no longer just a number on a dashboard. It becomes a form of protection. It becomes a way of sending strength forward. Every contribution says, I know you are coming, I have not forgotten you. Every increase says, you matter more than this temporary comfort. Every debt paid off says, I am taking one more hand off your throat. Every dollar left invested says, grow. I will not interrupt you unless I truly have to. That is when compounding begins to work in the real world, not in a perfect spreadsheet. Not in a fantasy where nothing breaks and nobody needs help. In the real world, where money has pressure on it, where people get tired, where markets fall, where emergencies happen, where temptation is quiet and constant. Compounding works when the money survives long enough to age. That sentence is worth remembering. Compounding works when the money survives long enough to age, and your job is not just to invest it, Your job is to protect it from being pulled apart by a life with no margin. So if your monthly amount is small right now, do not use this video as a reason to quit. Use it as a reason to stop lying to yourself gently. Keep the habit, respect the habit, but build the next step. Raise the amount when you can. Close the drains. Capture freed up payments. Take the employer match if it is available. Avoid pretending risky bets are the same as a plan. And above all, stop measuring success by whether you invested something this month. Start measuring whether your system is getting stronger. Because a strong system can turn an ordinary person into someone financially stable over time. But a weak system can make even a decent income disappear for decades, and that is the part most people miss. Compounding is not just about money earning money. It is about a life becoming organized enough to let money stay in motion. So when someone says, compounding is useless if you only invest a small amount, the answer is not simple, because small investing is not useless. But small investing can become a beautiful lie if you never ask what it is actually capable of doing. It can give you the comfort of movement without the power of progress. It can make you feel responsible while the numbers remain too weak to protect you. It can let you say, I'm doing something, while your future quietly asks, but will it be enough? And that is the question we have been circling the whole time, not with fear, with honesty. Because compounding is real. It is one of the most powerful forces in personal finance. But it is not a miracle worker. It does not erase late starts. It does not cancel high-interest debt. It does not fix a lifestyle that consumes every raise. It does not protect money that keeps getting pulled out. It does not turn symbolic contributions into retirement security just because the intention was good. It needs fuel. It needs time. It needs protection. It needs a life around it that does not keep sabotaging it. And maybe that is the quiet shift that has to happen. You stop seeing investing as something separate from the rest of your life. You stop treating it like one little transfer happening in the corner while every other financial habit remains untouched. You start seeing the whole machine. The payment you choose, the debt you carry, the emergency fund you build, the raise you capture, the lifestyle you refuse to inflate, the boundary you set, the automatic transfer you protect, the amount you increase even when nobody notices. All of it is part of compounding. Because compounding is not only what happens inside the account, it is what happens when your decisions begin to repeat in the same direction. A person does not become financially stable because one month went perfectly. They become stable because enough months start telling the same story. Less leakage, more ownership, less panic, more margin, less pretending, more truth. And for someone over 40, that truth matters. You may not have the same runway you had at 25, but you still have decisions. You still have income to direct. You still have payments that can end. You still have habits that can be examined. You still have purchases you can delay. You still have raises you can capture. You still have a future that can be treated with more seriousness than it has been treated before. Maybe you cannot make the past disappear, but you can stop making the future pay for it. That is where the real power begins. Not in shame. Shame does not build good systems. Shame makes people hide, quit, or chase risky shortcuts. The goal is not to look at your monthly investment and feel embarrassed. The goal is to look at it clearly and ask, what is the next honest increase? What is the next leak I can close? What is the next payment I can redirect? What is the next decision that makes my future less fragile? That is how this becomes practical. Not dramatic. Practical. If you are investing $50, protect the habit and look for the path to $100. If you are investing $100, ask what would make $200 possible. If you are investing $300, ask what would help you reach $500. If a debt payment ends, do not let the whole payment disappear into comfort. If you receive a raise, decide before it arrives how much your future gets. If you have no emergency fund, build enough cash so your investments can stop being interrupted. If you are taking too much risk because you feel behind, pause and ask whether you are building a plan or trying to outrun regret. These are not glamorous questions, but they are the questions that put a person back in control. And control is not always loud. Sometimes control looks like leaving money alone. Sometimes it looks like saying no gently. Sometimes it looks like driving the same car a few more years. Sometimes it looks like not upgrading the house. Sometimes it looks like finally admitting that the monthly amount you were proud of was a good beginning, but not the destination. There is dignity in that admission, because it means you are no longer asking a tiny contribution to carry a giant dream by itself. You are becoming an adult with the numbers. And that is different from being pessimistic. It is a kind of respect. Respect for math, respect for time, respect for the life you still want. Respect for the older version of you who is walking toward you quietly, 1 month at a time. And maybe that older version of you does not need you to be perfect today. Maybe they do not need you to suddenly become rich or brilliant or fearless. Maybe they just need you to stop postponing the truth, to stop feeding the future crumbs and calling it a plan, to stop letting every freed up dollar get swallowed by the present, to stop confusing financial activity with financial strength. Because the day will come when the paycheck is smaller or slower or gone. And on that day, the question will not be whether you meant well. The question will be what you built. So build something that can stand, not all at once, not perfectly, but seriously. Feed the machine, protect the money, close the drains, increase the amount. Let time do what time can still do. And when the numbers finally begin to move, when the account starts to feel less fragile, when your life has more margin than it used to, you may realize compounding was never useless. It was waiting for you to stop giving it leftovers. If this video made you think differently about your own money, follow the channel and share this with 5 people who need to hear it before they lose more time. And leave a sincere comment below. What is one financial habit you know you need to change next? You can also tell me what topic you want me to cover in the next video. Because sometimes the future does not need a miracle. Sometimes it just needs to stop being last in line.